Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. A child protective services case is one of the most frightening experiences for any parent. Don't face it alone. Face it with confidence with Urgent Assist by CPS Protect. You can have access to former CPS investigators to make sure you preserve your rights and protect your family. If you're facing CPS involvement and aren't sure where to turn, their child welfare consultants can help you. Visit cpsprotect.com/subscribe and enter the coupon code SLAMTHEGAVEL for 60% off your first year of Urgent Assist. And this is available in all 50 states. I have another announcement. Bradley's mother, Narkis Golan, passed away in the fall of 2022. Bradley is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to the Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back, he will then face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system, where he can't speak or understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known. And please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. Please keep Bradley here safe in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. Another announcement, go to the site, pleasedoyourjob.com. That we need 3,000 more signatures and to sign the petition. That's pleasedoyourjob.com would be greatly appreciated. I'm bringing back on Dolores Feliciano. She was last on my podcast, season 4, episode 115. And she is a very dedicated mother, advocate and activist, and she has been doing protests against CPS. And she has also recently been interviewed on the Caller That Embraces and recently Mary Kovacs. Let's talk about parental alienation and domestic violence and the Andy Martin show. And she has also dedicated a Facebook journal page specifically for her daughter, and with unconditional and unending love, to show her that her mother is always there for her and waiting. And so I welcome you, Dolores. How are you doing? And when did you start the Facebook journal page?
Thank you, Mary, for having me back again. It's always good to be back to discuss and to bring hope and promise to all the targeted parents out there and to the children.
Mm-hmm.
I created that Facebook journal for my daughter back in 2017 in the hopes that she can see that me, her mom, and her family are still here, loving her unconditionally and unendingly, and just sending her love and affection and strength. We're always here for her, always going to be here for her. And that was my message. That was my last thought, and possibly reaching out to her, not knowing where she was or where she's been all these years.
Yeah, it's just so unfair what the courts have done to parents, the good, fit, targeted parent. And, what do you think about stopping the leverage in the courts? Because they're the ones that are making all these mistakes that they know they're making. They know exactly what they're doing to the targeted parent. So what do you think of these judges that are pulling this?
Well, you definitely hit it on target there, Marianne. The leverage has gotten out of hand within the courts and coming from outside the courts. You have those who work within the courts that know people outside the courts. There's leverage. You have attorneys who know friends outside the court. There's leverage. You have campaign leverage. You have status leverage. Those who have title status, i.e. retirement from law enforcement or some political chain of campaign. That's all leverage, and it's being invited into the courts, and it's being abused. It should not be used. Forthright, it is unconstitutional. It is against federal law in every line and aspect, and they know it.
Mhm.
So again, we're dealing with money, we're dealing with campaign, we're dealing with friends. This is all leverage. This is not limiting the law guardians, the law guardians ad litem, the attorneys for child, whatever name they want to call them now.
Mhm.
And specifically attorney for child, that one disturbs me the most,
Exactly.
because why would a child hire an attorney? They're too young to even understand what an attorney or the language. So why? I mean, just common sense alone, logically, it's just unlogical.
And
So
also these family or these children attorneys for the children, they don't even speak to some of these kids, and they're
oh,
getting paid.
that's yes, that's correct. Most of them don't even see them.
Right.
I remember in my case, mine, my the court had, well, before they had assigned a law guardian at the time, that's what they were called. I had requested CASA. CASA was made to a separate entity that was created to support the children, to come in and be their liaison. When I had requested CASA before my first trial that I fought to have back in 2010, the magistrate, at the time, had lied and stated that the one and only CASA representative, or as I say, administrator, had passed away, and they could not replace. At the time, you don't know what you know now, but that, of course, was farce. And so at that moment, that's when they had assigned a specific law guardian, and which was a favorite of the courts.
Mhm.
I've tried to get her off our case since 2010 for
Ugh.
her negligence, and it just went on the wayside. This is a common, unfortunate happening that reoccurs constantly within this, I'm going to say it, fake system
Right.
for the children, for the family, because it is fake. It was not derived for the public. It was not derived for families. There's only one family it was created for, and that was for the family of the courts.
Mhm.
Everyone within those walls. Um, so a law guardian was placed on the case, and it just spiraled. It just spiraled. I fired the legal aid that I had at the time due to misrepresentation, or I should say, no representation. Um, and I was hated upon. I was hated upon because I stated that I no longer wanted her on the case, that she wasn't doing her job.
Right.
And so I went and had to go out on the outside with some help to hire someone from the outside, and it was looked down upon. It was frowned upon. The magistrate became prejudiced against me, and it was later on found out she was, when we appealed her denial to have my new attorney. We appealed it, and she was found prejudiced on 3 accounts. So
Ugh.
not only was I able to bring my attorney in, but we were given a trial back in 2010. Yes, so I can go into full story. It's so long. My case is so long that
Ah,
there's so many happenings. I would do
mhm.
much. People ask me questions,
Right.
um, but it's
Well,
so
how
much
long
to remember.
yeah, how long have you been through this family court system that should be abolished?
Since 2010 was my first step foot, or I should say, my first drag pulled into this system. Um, Again, because um, my my ex fiance at the time involved himself with someone with leverage,
Yeah.
and that was a retired law enforcement officer. Um,
Mhm.
and there's your history. From
Right.
day one, I remember specifically the first day first time ever in front of a judge, my first time ever in front of a judge, his attorney specifically stated to the judge, "Oh, and by the way, Your Honor, Mr. So-and-so is married to a police officer."
Mm.
There you go. There started the whole spiral, the whole leverage point from day one. And defending.
Yeah, in your case, should have just been moved to another venue such as mine, because my ex was married to a clerk in the courthouse who did have a lot of power, by the way. You know, they're saying that these clerks do have a lot of power, unfortunately. And
Oh, yes.
yeah, I mean, I think family court should just be abolished. They know what they're doing. They are.
Abolish and arrest.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes, I agree with that as well. If they're not if they're not willing to conform to the Constitution, if they're not willing to conform to righteousness, if they're not willing to conform to their oath,
Mhm.
then it should definitely. We've been trying to reform this system for over 4 decades now, and
Mhm.
nothing's come of it. And that's due to Congress. It's due to Congress not reforming itself,
Mhm.
and Congress deriving up this entity in the first place.
Right.
Especially their special agency, most favorite agency, the CPS agency,
Mhm.
that was derived by Congress as well. And I was specifically told by a CPS supervisor in my dealings over the years, and asking questions, and why this, why don't you do visits on the weekend, and why, and she came out and said, if you want us to change, you're going to have to talk to Congress.
Oh. Well, I mean, I would like to see CPS abolished with a new system or put in its place, because I know we need these things, but they have to be having a psychological degree, especially in child psychological abuse, on top of the other abuses. But these have to be educated individuals that are going to be paid more, you know, at taxpayer expense, but these are going to be educated individuals, not people that prance into your home and steal your kid.
Definitely, I agree 100%. The reform is an understatement.
Right.
They first have to be educated. They are not educated. They are not trained. Uh,
Mm-mm.
uh, they are not trained properly,
No.
let alone long enough. Um, and well, here's one for you. See, my mind's being remembered. See,
Yeah.
my first time having been called for the CPS agency, and this was the works of my ex-fiance and his friend, who had pull to
Mhm.
try to get back at me maliciously,
Mhm.
for number one, wanting to relieve the relationship, the domestic violent relationship, and realizing, you know, um, how troubled he was.
Mhm.
This was a vengeance against me, and a lot of people tend to use CPS as a weapon.
Yep.
So my first visit into my home, I will never forget. It was a shock. It
Yeah.
was, with all these accusations that just were so absurd and disgusting and just
Mhm.
wrong. I just never heard of such deceit. And my eldest, as young as she was, stood up and asked to speak to this individual, and she laid it into him, boy.
Good for her.
My mother would never do such a thing, and this and that, and bless her heart.
Oh.
And he was taken, and in the end of the whole thing, this whole episode, he walks out the door, and hold on to yourselves, people, when you hear this. He walks out the door and it says to me, because at the time I wasn't working. I had just had a child, and I was, we had agreed that if we were to marry, I would be a stay-home mom, you know, the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. But anyway, I was home, and I was looking for work. I'm on my third career, so at the time I was looking for a job. So he says, we have many openings. Sign up, and we'll employ you.
Mm. Interesting.
Isn't that a shocker?
Huh.
Oh yes. Right after a home visit, and interviewing me and laying upon these accusations, this is what was told to me on his way out the door.
Funny you should mention
Like
that.
I said,
Yeah, because after my first indication, and I was exonerated from, the head of the caseworker said, you know, maybe, you could come work for us, because I said, "Believe me, if I worked for you, I could make this place run a lot better than it already is." And he says, "Well, maybe, once you're done with your indication or whatever, you can come work for us." I'm going, "Why the hell would I?"
well, we all know why, because they're in desperate need of counselors, as they call themselves. Oh, and by the way, so that and the public knows, when you mention exoneration, none of these accusations that were brought upon me were proven. They were
Mhm.
all unfounded, and we're
Right.
talking years worth of accusations.
Mhm.
We've even had the very first judge that they brought it before. This is way before he retired. He just threw it out and said, "This is disgusting. There's no proof on this."
Mhm.
So, when that happened, they were both shocked, and
Mhm.
I was just mortified. The Lord was with me.
Mhm.
I was heavy laden. I walked out and just said, "Wow, we've got Satan in this building.
Yeah.
We've definitely got some bad spirits and bad vibes." Excuse me. And I knew that this was going to be a journey. This was going to be a life lesson journey. And I had to be strong. I had to be strong for my daughter, for my children.
Mhm.
And it took a toll. It does, as it does when you're being dragged through years, and the work that you put into it, and the amount of paperwork and research, and it just became a full-time job of its own. And it did. And I'd like to take a mention to or make a mention. It doesn't just affect the individual, doesn't just affect you as a targeted parent. It affects your entire family.
Right.
It affects your friends that you've had,
Mhm.
your acquaintances, because the negative energy that you're withholding coming through this plague of a system is a very heavy burden. Takes a toll. It takes a toll on your mind if you allow it, and it takes a toll on your family, because they see you going through it, and very emotional, very, very. I can't even put into words. It's like you're battling the devil.
Right.
You're battling Satan, and that's what I truly feel in my heart. And it took a toll, and I had an awakening, and I said, "Wow, this is exactly what they want you to do. This is exactly what they want to do to you. They
Mhm.
want to tear you apart,
Mhm.
and they want to emotionally, financially, psychologically tear you apart, so that you either withdraw, give up, or concede." And you can't allow that. You can't allow that. No, and I understand what you're saying, people out there, but it's my child. It's my child. I can't give up on my child. No, you're not giving up. You're just doing it a different way. You have to learn to do it a different way. I remember me saying that on my very first interview with you, um, Marianne,
Mhm.
is that, You have to go about it a different way. If you keep tracking the steps that get you nowhere, there's a saying, right? If you keep doing the same things, expecting different results and not getting it, that's virtually going insane, right? So you got to learn how to do it a different way. But most people don't know how, or have the strength to do so, or the want to do so, you know. And I'm going to say this again, it's going to take sacrifice in order to do it. Sacrifice meaning that you're going to have to learn how to just step back for a moment, regroup, take care of yourself, and get back in the game. Because virtually, folks, it is a game. It's a vicious game.
Yeah.
It's a vicious game. And I'm going to say this for the first time on air. They've won that game, but they haven't won the war. So God has got this. You just have to stay there, in there, remain physically, mentally, emotionally healthy for your children, because no matter what, they see you. And if my daughter's watching this right now, I love you always and forever, and more than that, because that's what you used to say when you were little. But don't let me go on a tangent here, Marianne, because you know that I can.
Well, what do you think of, getting rid of family court, taking it down to the civil court where you do have a jury trial? However, this has to all be limited to not having family court or the civil court drag out for 6 years. It has to be minimum 8 to 10 months and you're done. So you've got to have either, several judges or this jury deciding things. And of course, they should also look at the parent who keeps calling in the indications, because that is an abuse of taxpayer expense. They should be held accountable for placing false allegations on you, especially when it makes you lose your job. For a lot of parents.
Oh, amen. Not only lose your job, lose your family, lose your friends, lose your social life. Definitely, yes. Jury trials are needed. Yes, that is the answer. But that's the reason why they won't have it, Marianne, because it ends very quickly. The key point of having this entity they call family court is to keep the litigation ongoing so that everyone can make money. It's a money pit. I do know that they do have a cutoff point to a case. The cutoff point is very lengthy. That's 10 years. Once a case has gone 10 years, they have to find reason, and I mean any reason, to get it off the calendar, to move it along. And that's what they did with my case. I had fought with an attorney back in the day, make a long story short, to get my first trial. When the first trial got received from an appeal, my attorney passed away mysteriously. I'll leave it at that. After that, I was on my own, solely on my own, not knowing where to go, who to hire, until it took me hiring after my fourth attorney, knowing it was going nowhere. And that was God sent. It was an epiphany that I had from God, saying that you're not going to get anywhere by hiring these attorneys, these people who are not licensed, these people who do not know parental alienation. We have narcissistic personalities who work with inside the courts, possibly even judges.
Sociopaths.
So, so after firing in 2013, after hiring my fourth attorney, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and then coming right up to our cross-examining CPS, because yes, folks, I did take CPS to court. I did file a petition against them,
Mm-hmm.
along with the forensic evaluator at the time, who lied on stand, not much less on paper. So when we were ready to cross-examine, and they hadn't had a leg to stand on, CPS was falling through a very deep hole.
Mm-hmm.
And my attorney was missing for 2 months. No phone call, no return phone calls from her, no return messages, nothing, just vanished. Up until the day we had cross-examination, and then she told me she wanted to throw in the white towel.
Typical.
Typical, because she conspired with the opposite side
Mm-hmm.
for 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
thinking of a way to end this case, thinking of a way to win it for CPS. And that was so that I would concede to stipulations that were unconstitutionally and illegally written up by a law guardian, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. And it took them 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
2 hours to coerce me. Now, you see, I'm bringing up terms that the public is probably having an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone, folks. You are not alone. Coercion is the most essential tactic, an important tactic that this DSS CPS system has to use within the courts in order to put fear in their opponent in order to win a case.
Right.
Especially when they're going on a down spiral, like my case. And when they were going on a down spiral, and the judge at the time before retirement said they hadn't had a leg to stand on because of the evidence, to show not only my innocence, but to show the accusing party their guilt in abuse of my child. Again, we're dealing with the leverage.
Mm-hmm.
You had asked me a long time ago, would this have gone, did I feel this case would have gone this far if my ex-fiance was not involved with law enforcement? And I'd say, no, it would not have gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It would have ended very short. But back onto the cross-examination, I was forced to be, and coerced. I was threatened. My family was threatened. I felt like I was dealing with the mafia. Actually,
Oh.
it is its own mafia.
Right.
It is its own mafia, in my opinion.
Except the real mafia has more class.
You
know.
Yes. Yeah. But mm-hmm.
Because
So I was being coerced.
Uh-huh. And you're here being coerced by everyone in there to get your child away from you and to instill that they're going to, I don't know how to say this, they're going to instill in that child false narratives, a shared persecutory delusion and child psychological abuse to get her away from you.
Oh, most definitely. That was happening ever since when she was 2 years old. She'll now be turning 15 this September. It's fun. It's yes. So back on that, the coercion,
mm-hmm.
and then instilling stipulations, whereas the stipulations should have been upon them.
Mm-hmm.
And these stipulations were so absurd and did nothing for my daughter. If anything, it was a plan to make it worse for me. But they were threatening to come in my home. They were threatening to take my job away.
Mhm.
Like, you're familiar with that. They were
Yeah.
threatening to take my car. They said that they would be knocking on my door every day. I mean, threats upon
Yep.
threats. And these threats have come into appearance in reality. This is what they do. So at the time, I had to, and this is where sacrifice I had to think quick. I never in my life felt like my body was taken over by by a spirit that was evil. Like I felt like I could go through the wall at the time. And
Mhm.
in 2 hours, I was telling this woman shame on her, and that she will face her purgatory and whatever, and her head was down, and she said, I have no choice, I have to do. She was. And then I had a call from a cousin of mine who was working, at the time, with federal, and she said, what's going on? And I said, I'm being told that I have to take stipulations, otherwise this is blah 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 blah. So she asked to speak to the attorney, and it was my cousin at the time. She said, yeah, you're definitely going under some severe coercion.
Mhm.
And but it never held. Constitutionally, it never held, because I was forced verbally to say yes to these stipulations, but there was no proper court allocution. And what I say by that is that the judge never gave or questioned me whether I was intimidated to take these stipulations, if I was under duress. I was never asked to raise my right hand. And more importantly, folks, sign a piece of paper on it,
Oh.
which was the next visit that we had. But they kept that conference away from me. See, so I had to do a lot of research and know the court calendar. I had ways of finding out the court calendar, who was to appearing that day. I even went down to the clerk's desk, and you're right, the clerk's desk do, enable whatever wrongdoings.
Mhm.
And but this particular one said, yes, you have a court date and you have to appear because it's part of your trial. So against the law guardian's wishes, against my attorney at the time, who said, no, you don't have to show, I'll show for you, I went there.
Yeah. Good
And
for
luckily I did. And luckily for me, I did,
you.
because
Mhm.
that day was to solidify those stipulations, because legally it wasn't legal. Not only was it legal, the fact that the law guardian had written it up, she was interfering unconstitutionally. That's not her jurisdiction. But the fact that it was coerced and I had no proper court allocution, it was null and void. But they were trying to go around that. So I showed up, banged on the door. I spoke to an officer. I do not agree to these stipulations. I was coerced into them. I never had proper court allocution, and asking me if I was under duress, and I'm not signing it. Well, guess what they did anyway?
Oh.
They snuck it behind the backstage and showed it to the same very judge who they first brought the accusations to, who denied and said withdrawn, saw that I verbally agreed to stipulations, and then what happens? It puts a thought in the judge's mind that I'm agreeing to whatever was done on my daughter, right?
Mhm.
So he says, and he signs it. And there you go. There
Yeah.
you have it. But when I fired her, regardless, despite what they had told me about the, being threatened, I personally, myself, and I
Mhm.
appealed it. That was when it just became my life. I came home
Mhm.
from work and I made it my second job.
Oh,
I read
yes.
into law library, how to read, how to write, how to speak, how to write petitions. I became my own, um, what do you call it? The
Well,
paralegal.
right, right.
I became my own paralegal. I wrote, when I look back at what I did, I can't believe I did. That was me. I did that petition. I wrote that. Anyway, It was 5 inches thick. I went on foot, took a train in to the city and put that petition in.
Mhm.
It was accepted. The appeal went through. I had a very good appellate attorney that was assigned to me, and she knew very well why it went the way it did. And I told her, I want you to fight coercion.
Uh-huh.
And it was written coercion, but it was accepted. It went back down to family court,
Oh.
back down to the same judge. And he stated reason for dismissal was the fact that I had showed no proof to the alleged, as they said, actions that were done on my daughter. So it was dismissed. So I said, okay, he wants proof. And that's when I did my whole big petition on all the proof, the data, the reports, the videos, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I won the appeal for a evidentiary hearing,
Mm-hmm.
with also a motion to remove this law guardian ad litem, attorney for child, whatever she wants to call herself, due to, and I wrote a separate, before all that, I had wrote a separate petition or motion, a complaint to her, to her board.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how that went. They dismissed it. Oh, we'll take it into consideration. Yeah, yada, yada, yada. But she was still left on the case. So yes, jury trials are important, people. And this is why they try to avoid it, because they know you have the proof. They know you have the evidence, and they know it's going to end quickly, and therefore nobody gets the paid. Cameras also should be implemented, and also recordings.
All tamper proof.
Oh, yes. Unconditional authoritative power given. Unconstitutional, authoritative power given to law guardians constantly. Given to guardians ad litem, attorney for child, whatever they want to call themselves. Yes, I'll keep repeating that statement, whatever they want to call themselves, because by next year they'll give another term.
Oh, right.
They're given unconstitutional authoritative power.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, oh yes, unfortunately, they are put on a case so that they are the liaison to the judge, the eyes, the ears, whatever else, the messenger, the little birdie,
yeah,
that the judge will only listen to. So if your ex-husband, wife, fiance, lover, okay, gets himself a good he attorney, and they're friends with a law guardian within the court, one does hey, do me the favor, I got this case, do me the favor. It's all favoritism, it's all bias.
Oh, it is.
With no regards to the child. My very first time ever having to meet this woman, and it took my work. These law guardians are instructed to contact both parents, to talk to both parents in regards to their child. This particular law guardian avoided me like the plague. I never heard of her. Actually, I had to phone her office in order to introduce myself. Who does that?
Right?
Who does that? As a matter of fact, that's the question she asked. Who are you? Why are you calling me? I don't know, because I haven't heard from you, and I was told that you were assigned to my case and that I would be getting a call from you, and I don't know. It's about 2 months later since this letter, and I haven't heard from you.
Mm-hmm.
She states, well, I don't have to see you. I only have to see your child. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'd like to see you. I would like to see you. Can I come see you? chat with a cup of coffee or tea. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to know who you are. I'd like
Right.
to see who my child sees. Can we see each other? I mean, I must have made her feel so like, who is this woman? You know what? So
Yeah.
she agreed. She agreed
Hmm.
at her office. If my little girl at the time, she was 2, if she could have crawled up my womb, it would have been that day.
Mm.
She did not want to be in that office with that woman, with me on my lap. Mommy, can I go outside and be with Sissy in the other room? Mommy, can this woman was questioning my daughter, or I should say spoon feeding her questions on it, what do they call it? Those
Leading
questions.
questions.
Oh, thank you. I went blank again. Forgive me, folks. When I go on a tangent and I'm talking about my case, PTSD sets in sometimes.
Exactly.
So, yeah, she was leading my daughter on, and my daughter was becoming. I mean, like she could have crawled up inside of me. She would that day. Not child friendly office. No, as a matter of fact, I made a suggestion on my way out. I said, you think you can add some toys or something in here to make it more child friendly? I mean, it was cold. It was just
Hmm.
leather and just, I knew that day that I was on a long journey with this woman. I knew that day that that woman was biased against me.
Hmm.
And I wrote in my petition as a letter of that whole day experience in that office.
Hmm.
Words, sentences, statements quoted. It was horrific. I knew right then. And since then, she never called me, never came to my home and visited, nothing, never shared anything with me regarding my daughter. Nothing at all.
I was
Nothing
thinking,
at all. And mind you,
uh, I was thinking, why not put all of that into an affidavit, even though it happened when she was 2? You can write this experience down, get it notarized, keep the copy or keep the original and send a copy to the whoever you complain to about these attorneys in your state. Because she participated in child psychological abuse by leading on.
oh,
Uh-huh.
most definitely. Do you lose me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, that goes without saying. I did write a letter. I wrote an official complaint sent to
Mm.
bar. Yeah, okay. The bar. That's another story. That's another topic. Um, the complaint went through and it was just pacified. We received your complaint. We'll make a note of it. Blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So again, it went to the wayside. These courts enable law guardians, guardians ad litem, attorney for child, whatever they want to call themselves.
Mhm.
They enable them in this behavior.
Oh,
It's a
yes.
planned tactic to to make you want to go insane, or to make you seem unstable, when the unstable one is the one who's doing it.
Exactly.
This
Yep.
particular in this particular law guardian, um, there's 2 of them that are favored, specifically in this court here on Long Island, New York, Suffolk County,
Mhm.
who do the same thing. They're best buddies. And at the time when she was given my case, I actually saw her walking in a mall one day,
Mhm.
and I had to double check. I checked. I said, "Is that her?" And it was. She was walking her 2 little boys. She's also a mother. Our boys were probably a little bit older than my daughter at the time. And I looked, and I don't know if she recognized me, but I saw her and she was walking with her sons, or I should say, dragging them by the hand.
Yeah.
And I said, "Dear Lord," I said, "Dear Lord," she's a mom herself. And I actually felt bad for her children.
Mhm.
I really did. I said a prayer for her her boys. And if you're listening, Beth, if you're listening, Miss Rosenthal, I want to let you know that I've forgiven you, and I've prayed for you and your boys. And I don't know if you had a third since then, but I pray for your children and the world that they're coming upon. Because as the Bible say, what you sow you shall reap. And I don't wish that upon you or your children, because I'm not a hateful person. Never was and never will I be. And as you can see, what this has done to me, it's only made me stronger. And the time will come when the truth shall set everyone free. And you will have to deal with your own wrongdoings. And I pray for you. You know, the future generations to come, Marianne, and from what I'm hearing, the generations now and the ones to come, you know, they're thinking twice about having children. With everything that's happening in the world now, aside from family court and everything else, you know, but finding out what the system, this evil, tyrannical plague of a system, is doing to families and children. There's only one way to stop, in my opinion. It's called starvation, right? Stop feeding the monster. Eventually it will wither and die. And although I hate to say this, their food are children. And the generations to come are thinking twice about having children.
And I don't blame them.
And that's sad. And yes, and that's sad. But in order to stop the evil, we've got to put a halt somehow. And God is coming back, and things are going to halt. And in order to start renew fresh, we have to kill off. Well, don't take that literally, but we have to. In other words, before things get better, they have to get worse. And things are coming up to the surface. Truth is coming up to the surface. People are seeing things now. And we hope all those will be held accountable.
Oh, they will be.
For this crimes against humanity. Because this is exactly what this is. A part of crimes against humanity. This entity is a part of that. And they've torn families apart, friendships apart, siblings apart. Children become missing every day. I haven't been around my daughter. She's going to be 15 this September. Last time we saw her when she was 4, and that was when they finally took her out of my custody, wrongfully, unjustifiably, maliciously. What other words can you think of? Due to leverage.
Dereliction.
My daughter has suffered parental.
Right.
Yes. And my daughter has suffered parental alienation. The starts of it began when she was 2. And it's all done under fear and physical, mental, emotional abuse. And it starts when they're young. So they mold them. And now when they become teenagers, it becomes all that negative, that abusive, physical, emotional, and mental is in the foreground of their mind. But now when they become teenagers, it's now become a materialistic manipulation. Whereas money comes into play, cars and material things and promises, empty wishes and promises. And, you know, if you should speak the word of your mother or father, if you think about loving your mother or father, if you accept a token of your mother or father, if you just, you'll get reprimanded, you'll get, these children are receiving consequences, or they're taking away their phones or the material things they're not going to get for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Fill in the blanks. It's just an ongoing fear tactic. And last but not least, as discussed on our last podcast, when my daughter had turned 12
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, on 2020, I had thought of sending a COVID birthday parade, because, mind you, it was 8 years since I saw my daughter, heard from her, seen her, anything. And I said, well, I've watched others, and I've seen in my town parades go by, and it just dawned to me. I said, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
I can give her a birthday parade. And it was success. It was successful. The Lord, upon my asking, gave me a beautiful day. I couldn't care if it was raining. I was going to do it. But I didn't know whether she was going to be home. Long story short, beautiful day. She was home. 6-car parade, friends and family, done up to the nine, horns and bugles. Down the street, here we go. She was home, and she came out in awe, saw it, and with my mask and my sunglasses, she probably didn't recognize me, but I yelled out, "It's Mama! It's Mama! Happy birthday!" I wanted to hug her and run up and swirl her around. Here I go, getting on a tangent here. I'm not going to do it.
Aw.
But she saw down the block who was coming up, and immediately just put her head down and walked away. And these are just tactics, fear tactics, and they became fearful of me for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
because with that parade, my daughter probably questioned everything they must have said. I don't know what they've said, if they said anything bad about me or lied to her about that I'm no longer in existence. I mean, I've had preschools in the past said that they never knew I existed, because they said I was gone.
Oh.
That I abandoned my daughter. Sweetheart,
Mm-hmm.
I never did, and never will I.
Mm-hmm.
Mama has always been here for you, and always will be. Our bond could never be broken. And I know that you may be feeling angry right now, and you have every right, but Mama did not allow them. Mama did not give permission when they asked to move down out of state after your COVID parade.
Mm-hmm.
Mama did not give permission for sole custody. Mama did not give them permission to move out of state. Mama did not give permission. Mama was always here. And they lied to me too. The courts lied to me. The courts kept me from speaking on your behalf.
And this is what
The
they do.
courts failed you. The courts failed you. The
Mm.
courts failed you, sweetheart.
That's a big
And
court fail.
yes, and you're not alone. They're doing it to many other children. And I've been defending you. I will not use the word fight, because Mama does not fight. Okay. I've been defending you all this time, and I'm your number one cheerleader, baby. Know that forever. I am your number one cheerleader. And I know you're feeling angry, and I don't blame you. I know you're feeling hurt, and I know you're feeling fearful, but you know what? I know your heart too.
Mm-hmm.
I know your heart too. And you have nothing to be guilty of. Nothing. You are not guilty of anything.
Yeah.
I will love you unconditionally, no matter what. My doors are always open. Your
Yes.
birthday's coming up. And as always, I'll always remember your birthday. And since that COVID parade, they took flight anyway, against the order, against the litigation. They moved to another state while during litigation. And they know that they're wrong. And the reason why they take flight, whether it be a narcissistic trait or what have you, is because they know that they're losing grip. And when people feel that they're losing grip or that they're going to be exposed, they run away. And this was their tactic, to run away. And they manipulated the courts. They shopped for a judge. When it went in, it was 2 months later that they petitioned to sole custody once again under false allegations against me. Business going awry due to COVID, which was false. The business is still up and running. He just sold his portion to his partner. Know that.
Yep.
Did my research. And hired a few people, some which took advantage of my case and took some money under the table for their organization. People, if you want to know this organization, people, reach out to me. Marianne will tell you how you can reach out to me in the end, and I will gladly give you this information. They're using people in high conflict cases, people who have money, to buy themselves out so that they can help other people, and left me high and dry. But my case is a federal case now, and it was going to go to Washington, but I put a halt. I have my reasons right now. But it's not forgotten. And right now, I know they tried to hide their address, but a little birdie peeped. And I have communication with my daughter's school. Again, that was a feat in itself, but you have to be strong. You have to be strong, folks. You got to do your homework. You got to know your FERPA rights, and just stay in contact. I've always been in my children's life, functions, just life, school events. I've been in the PTA. I've worked in the schools. You just have to be persistent. Schools are unaware, okay? Schools are aloof when it comes to things like this, and they only can go so far. They only are told to go by one piece of paper, a custody paper, and that's it, okay? When the not knowing who's right or wrong, not caring, that's all it is. So when that's given to a parent, whether it be falsely, and there's a lot of them out there, that parent has a lot of say and pull within the school regarding a child. So the other parent who's being targeted has to now think selflessly and stop pushing and saying, okay, I got to know when to back off, because my child's son or daughter is receiving repercussions from that parent, the accusing parent, should the targeted parent intervene. So let's say you want to send your child school supplies, such as I did. It would be given back. If I wanted to take part in paying half money for a school trip, the money would be given back to me, saying that the other party did. It's anything to keep you to sever your contact with your child. And then they use the school as a vice. The accusing parent will use the school as a vice, should they be able to manipulate an administrator, in which
Oh, yes.
in the fourth, yes, okay. So in which, in my case, it took the fourth grade, where they were able to finally manipulate an administrator. From kindergarten up to fourth grade,
Oh,
the
yeah.
fourth grade severed, and then my daughter was severely being alienated, and receiving consequences should she accept her birthday corsage in
Mhm.
school, because they would throw it away if I sent it via florist or home. My daughter would never get it. So, and this is what I did with my oldest. Okay, it's a traditional birthday corsage,
Mhm.
and it was accepted second grade, third grade, right? I
Mhm.
got emails from teachers saying she loved the corsage. Thank you so much for sending the school pencils and stickers for the rest of the class to celebrating your daughter's birthday. You know, all this. Fourth grade, it stopped.
Yep.
It stopped to the point where I was called in by the principal and the social worker telling me that I need to stop because my daughter is crying. My daughter's crying?
She's crying
Why
because
is she
she needs her
crying?
mother.
Why is she crying? Oh, because she's receiving them from you. Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. My daughter wasn't crying 3 years ago, last year, when receiving them. As a matter of fact, look at these emails I'm getting from the teacher saying how happy she was. And no, 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 something's going on here. Well, we're not psychologists. We don't interfere with that. We don't get involved. Okay, I see where
Oh,
this
they're
is going.
already involved.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, CPS is tied to the social work within the public school district. Note that, people. And they also flash their badges when they want to enter into the school. Not right. That's
No.
wrong. And they need to have an appointment. So, it's a lot of pull, a lot of authoritative. And so I did, you asking me, well, Dolores, what did you do? I had to step back, folks. I had to think of my daughter. I didn't want my daughter to cry. Knowingly, I knew the real reason why she was crying, because she was told not to accept it. And if she should, she would receive consequence. So at that point, you need to back off. You need to back off, because I didn't want my child to receive consequences.
No, geez.
Should she accept the corsage, or should she? I didn't want her. I wanted her academics. I had to back off.
Hmm.
And as much as I knew that would hurt her and me, I did it anyway for her, because I wanted her schooling to go as smoothly as possible. And I did. Oh no, I didn't stop going to the recitals. Oh no, folks, don't think that. I didn't stop going to the concerts. I went. And yes, they tried to make hell for me on that too. I was being stalked in the parking lots. My daughter and I, my oldest, her sister, I got that on video, sent that also.
Mhm.
See, because the narcissist will befriend someone to do their dirty work for them. Okay.
Yeah.
And don't know which one of them are it, but it could be both. But they will do it, and they will make it uncomfortable for you. They will cause they will put blockades in front of you.
Mhm.
So I had to think for my daughter. I still went. I tried to get my daughter to know that I was there, and I put it on her journal. My daughter knows she was there. I even was there. Was it her fifth grade stepping up ceremony? That was a fiasco. Grandma got involved in that one, and had my daughter at the end. The children, the graduates, were invited to come into the audience to look for their parents, where me and her older sister were.
Mhm.
And they had play on that too. Grandma and daddy
Mhm.
had their way to stand in the doorway where the students were coming into the auditorium to visit. And I was in the row videoing, it was, didn't want to go. People were like, why didn't you go over to her? But I didn't want to cause anything. It was a great day. It was a ceremonial day. I'm not going to cause a scene, nor should any parents, whether you're right, no matter how much right you are. Okay.
Mhm.
So I stood at distance and I saw that they were directing her to go back up to the stage instead of coming out to the auditorium. And my daughter had purposely passed them by because I had that on me. And they called her back so that she wouldn't come out and see us.
And they all do this.
They did. I was followed during field day events, and I was PTAing that day for the field day events. It was just trying to make it so uncomfortable for me that I would actually, they want you to give up. They
Oh
want
yeah.
you to concede.
You know
And
what?
you should never.
No.
Go ahead.
I think we should have another podcast when we talk about these school districts.
Oh, would love to.
Oh yeah. So
Oh,
hold
I
all
would
those
love
thoughts.
to. Let's bring it out there, sister. Let's bring forth what the schools get themselves involved and where they shouldn't, leaving their noses out of. Yes, definitely.
We will.
I got some winners. I got
Okay.
some winners for you.
So do I. But
Oh,
hey,
I would love to hear them.
oh yeah. Well, you know what? Don't jump off. But how can people reach you if they have any questions?
Please feel free to reach me
Mm.
at my email, legendoflolaleo@gmail.com. legendoflolaleo@gmail.com. If you have any questions regarding what to do, or how to heal, or what to expect, just reach out to me. And I'll be here to help as in any way that I can.
Awesome. Well, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms that in turn perpetuate parental alienation. I am your host, Marianne Pedri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us with Dolores again in the future when we're going to talk about school districts, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And you can find my podcast on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Anchor FM, YouTube, and iHeart, everywhere. Thank you again, Dolores.
Thank you again, Marianne. Always a pleasure.